get on her pad. Dora, you getting on?
And Helena's on her way. She just got off work at 6.
So I think we pretty much have everyone then.
Yeah, I sent a
Dora,
link
you
to.
getting on?
I sent a link to Ian Pryor. He might come on. You never know.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
How you doing, Alan?
Not bad, thanks. I'm up here in Cold Spring, the girlfriend's place.
Nice.
She's got a nice place in Cold Spring.
That's cool, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah, with the little Wheaton puppy that we have.
You remember Donovan Blair and Arena right down there?
Sure I do. Yeah, of course.
Hey, Christian, how you doing?
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Good, man. Good.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Nick is unfortunately got COVID.
Yeah. Are you by yourself though? No, you're not, Nick, because that's why you're wearing the mask, right? Because
Yeah.
that's heavy. Well, there's this new strain running around, or 2 new strains, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not that worried. I'm
We
not
want to be careful about it. I mean, well, look, my problem is my mom. You know, she's 100 years old, so
right. I've been
take
vaccinated.
a chance with her.
I'm taking Paxlovid. I don't feel okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, I was just looking at these old Facebook. I just put a couple of these old pictures on Facebook with me and Tom and Sinclair and Christian.
Yeah, I think I saw a couple of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so how you guys been, man? You're surviving without my brother around? It's hard for me. I'm sure it's hard for you guys.
I certainly miss the old boy. You know, the other night I just was at my house in Sunset Park, and I saw that copy of Stolen Memories on the shelf, and I picked it up and I just started reading it, and I was like reading it for an hour. And you know, Tom wrote, you know, in other words, he thought he liked an article that he'd written for some obscure magazine like
right
10 years ago. And he said, "This is a really good article. Put this in the book."
Yeah, exactly.
This article was about syndicators, about people that syndicate TV shows, and about how they sell them to small stations around the country.
Right.
He says, well, you know, we spent $500. We bought The Man from U.N.C.L.E. for 3 weeks, and it performed like this. It got a 7 share and a 6 rating. And the next week it dropped down. And
right. He found it fascinating, and he wrote a whole article about it.
Right. And so, like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, look, this is an article that appeared 20 years ago in some obscure trade publication, and Tom likes it, and he puts it in a book that he thinks other people are going to want to read. But you know,
classic.
It reminded me. It actually made me think of an analogy of a storage room. You know, where people gather stuff and they put them in a storage room. For Tom, these books were like his storage rooms.
Well, isn't that what Donald Trump just did?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right, exactly, right.
No, but it's right. These stories are his storage room of his life, you know.
Right,
yeah, I agree.
Right. So Tom is like saying, I want you to open my book and visit my storage room.
And it's funny, I find myself doing that sometimes when I'm in his house, sorting through his stuff, looking through he's such a peculiar guy. But you know, I invariably have to go to the bathroom and I pick up one of his books to read while I'm in there. And you know, as I read them now, I feel bad about not giving him more props in his time, because you know, he would always give me the shit to read, and I would always like, yeah. And sometimes I read it, and sometimes I didn't, and sometimes you know, it's like I feel bad that I didn't give him enough, because he was really prolific.
Yeah,
he wrote so much. I mean, he's got files and files of shit that he wrote.
Well, I think that one of Tom illustrates one of the great you know, prerogatives or mandates of any writer. He's very readable.
Yeah,
like you open it and you just read easy. He goes down easy.
Yeah, it's true.
What he writes, it just does. And
he never dabbled much in fiction, right? As far as I know,
the stories that we wrote, but he never really thought he could write good fiction. He kind of was embarrassed. He didn't think it was that great. I mean, he wrote quite a lot of fiction stories, but you know, he thought that Sinclair was the best writer. Maybe Chris was the most creative, and I don't know where I fit in that, but and he didn't think much of his own literary talents when it came to fiction. Right. That's what I recall.
That's what I mean. Fiction was not his gig.
Yeah.
editing and I guess he fancied himself because of the improv and everything, kind of quick on the connections between stuff. I thought that was, but his connections were only in his world. Like he connected everything to Star Trek or Man from Uncle or some TV show or some movie. Everything was connected to those things that he knew. He never made it out of his realm of what he knew about. He didn't try to make a joke about Russia or something. It's funny like that.
He liked what he liked.
He liked what he liked.
Well, I think it was more what he wanted to read more than other people sometimes,
What do you mean, Chris?
Well, I think it was what interested him, was great for him and other people, but I think it wouldn't interest like everyone universally, Um,
Well, I remember Soter loved certain authors, and he was always trying to get people to like the authors he liked.
Right. He
Like-
fixated on somebody he wanted you to realize. Yeah,
Zoe
if it
joined
was
us.
John Christopher or
John Christopher, right? He was really
he loved that
into
guy.
Christopher.
He
Loved
was
John
touting
Christopher.
him as the next big thing for
Yeah.
40 years, right? He loved John.
Loved John
Christopher.
Christopher.
I never imagined that Anthony Trollope wrote so many books.
Right. He kept getting me to try. He kept trying to get me to read The Way We Were. And like after like a couple of years, he gave up. It's like I just like
he gave me 2 books one birthday, I think. And one, I think this was about 40 years ago. He gave me one by Thomas Hardy and one by Trollope,
mhm.
and I read them, and they were quite good, I had never read those authors before, but
Yeah, he was
I really
he was
enjoyed
big on
them.
Hardy and Trollope.
Well, Trollope,
Yeah,
I'm looking at about 30 Trollope books here.
He was not big on Dickens. He didn't he read them, but that was not his guy.
Mhm.
And he loved like Graham Greene, and the other dude he was really into was Charlie Chan, the writer. This
Oh,
guy
yeah,
Diggers.
yeah.
He loved
Yeah, and of
those.
course Earl Stanley Gardner.
And Earl Stanley Gardner, and Perry
gave me
Mason.
the-
He read every Perry Mason.
He gave me the
Tarzan,
complete Charlie Chan, yeah. Mhm,
Tarzan.
mhm.
And hi Ian, how are you?
Hi, Ian.
Hey Zoster.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess we all need no introduction. Ian, you know my brother, Zoe. Up there is Alan. I'll introduce you anyway. And that's Christian, who's a longtime filmmaker, and that's Donovan Blair and his daughter Raina. We grew up with them. Grew up with Nick and I and Tommy, and they live in the neighborhood. There's Dora. We're just kind of reminiscing a little bit about. Right now, we're in this eccentric literary taste of Trollope and Hardy and Earl Stanley Gardner. Oh, you're on mute.
Can you guys hear me?
I
Yeah.
can hear you. Yeah.
He would always
I-
refer to them in shows.
The what?
He would always refer to his obscure literary. He would always have obscure literary references in the shows.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
we would say, "Tom, nobody knows that."
Well, all you'd have to say to Tom in an improv was like, "The game's afoot,"
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then like,
Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to mention something from about 5 minutes ago. Tom actually collaborated with me on a couple of articles for my little magazine. It's a film magazine, and he brought out of storage, like you were saying, Sally, a review he did of all the medical shows.
yeah.
So I simply added on a couple of contemporary medical shows like House, and boom, we had a full survey of medical shows of the last 40 years.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
That was a lot of fun to do with Tom. I did a couple other ones like that. And then jumping in again on what you were just referring to, his fascination with Trollope. I stayed at Tom's house and I noticed all those trollops and everything else. And it was amazing to see the different ones that he, the authors that he loved. And the big crossover between me and Tom's interest was Graham Greene. So
Yeah.
I was very happy to see that he had every Graham Greene, and I was able to check out a few that I was not familiar with.
Yeah, he loved Graham Greene. I remember him talking about,
Graham
There
Greene.
are all the trollops and all the Graham Greens on that wall.
Yeah, those the white ones are Graham Greene.
And then and George Orwell, he was big on Orwell.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's great too. Yeah.
And Mark Twain, not surprisingly, but he found Mark Twain. That he read all of, he's got like 40 volumes of Mark Twain. He read them all. That's the thing about Tom. Almost every book in that house he read.
well, he also liked completion. In other words, you know, if he liked something, he would check out everything that that particular author or every single episode of a particular show.
Right.
And he'd work his way through it like a second time and a third time. Like I
Right,
think
is
around
that-
the time he
30
passed
minutes?
away, he was working his way through all the episodes of The Invaders.
Right. Do you think that's a mental condition that has a name?
It's called Asperger's.
I wonder, you know, because he really was into like the completion of the whole cycle. And then he would do it again or like maybe revisit it. I mean, I barely can get through 100, 200, 300 books in my life. I'm not going to read the same ones again. That's kind
Yeah, I
of
remember
crazy.
Tom got mad at me when I would buy a paperback and like I'd read the book and I'd like open it and he says, Saley, you know, you're cracking the glue. What are you doing? He said, well, you know, he said to me, well, you know, I buy two books. I buy the two of the same copy. One is to put on the shelf and the other is to read because I don't want to crack the glue.
Well,
Very
that
bizarre
was true
behavior.
growing up.
He,
if you
he
ever-
was on the spectrum, I have no doubt.
No,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Well,
you
that's
ever
a
touch-
standard collector's
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, but if you were back at 404, if somebody took out one of his books to look at it and read, he'd get a new copy.
Right, right. Because I would always rib Tom.
That was me.
well,
I did that. I didn't know. It was my first night there. And he came over very sheepishly and asked me if I had taken a book from the hallway. And I said,
Right.
yeah. And he said, oh, okay, thanks. I'll have to replace it. It's like, who is this guy?
I would always joke. I used to come over to your house at like 3 o'clock in the morning because that's when The Prisoner was on. And I used to joke to Tom. I said, well, you know, I'm going to take out a book out of the Tom Soter lending library. And he would never let me take a book. So I'd keep talking about the fictitious Tom Soter lending library, which of course
Sure.
didn't exist because he would never lend a book.
He was very particular, and you know, it translated later to DVDs. Because if you went to his house and said, "Oh man, can I get that?" he would make you a copy.
So I make you a copy. That's right.
He would not give you the real one or whatever, just the one from the right. He'd make you a
Right? He'll
copy
make you a copy on the spot.
on the spot.
You get the platinum toast or whatever that thing was.
And invariably, the copies did not work.
Right. Usually they did.
You go home, they skip. Something was wrong because he bought like cheap DVDs that he bought. Look, I got these great, you know, whatever. He bought a deal somewhere and half of them were scratched. Or
And then
something.
sort of
$1,010. Fantastic.
Blu-rays. Yes, yes, yes. And I remember when he sort of got the those laser discs, and he had the laser disc player, and he was really excited about that because of the quality of the laser disc recordings.
Right. Yeah, he did. Thank God he didn't go that way. He went only a little bit that way.
I was surprised, you know, when I went to Tom's house after he passed away, and I saw the complete set of Bob Dylan CDs.
Oh my God.
Because I never knew that Soter was into Bob Dylan. To tell you the truth, I never really mentioned. And he never mentioned Bob Dylan to me.
I'm surprised. I went to Bob Dylan show with him, and he liked Bob. He had a lot of. He was in all of Bob's CDs, but he's really into Van Morrison.
Really?
Mm.
Are
Of
you
all
kidding?
the artists that Tommy, I hate to say it, you know, at the musicians that he turned, I like Van Morrison enough, you know, I knew him and he was in the pantheon of people that I liked, but Tommy has got like 30, 40 Van Morrison CDs, and I started listening to him when I'm over there, and he turned me on to Van Morrison.
Really?
Yeah.
So of course, as far as I'm
Well,
concerned, Soter's big deal was besides the Bond music, it was the Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Mm.
loved the Beatles, all of
Yeah.
them.
He loved the Beatles.
especially
He
John
once
Lennon.
played he once played a Bob Dylan song for me when we were alone, and he cried afterwards. He thought it was so beautiful.
Really? Which one was that?
I don't know, I wasn't aware of what it was called.
No, he liked Bob Dylan a lot. And the Beatles, you're right.
He was
And
in the
and any John Barry thing, like music soundtrack.
Well, the film soundtracks, yeah, there's like, but that's again, like Tom collected, he liked it, like for Bernard Herrmann, obviously, he has everything, soup to nuts.
That's Hitchcock's
They
composer.
did all the scores for Hitchcock, right?
Right.
Everything. And he even liked Dmitri Chomkin, who did the score for High Noon. I think he had all of his stuff too. And
Lalo Schifrin.
Lalo Schifrin, of course,
Right.
Schifrin.
Mm.
Big deal. And then
And-
Star Trek, yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
But what's fascinating has always been is the alter egos that he falls in love with, the James Bonds, the Man from U.N.C.L.E., all these super macho, in a way, dudes who he wasn't. I mean, he just was not a macho guy, right? You never think of Tom and macho in the same sentence.
Yeah, which is sort of was paradoxical in that way. I mean, because he was very athletic, and he ran the 100-yard dash in 10-4 or
I know.
something. He was very athletic, but he didn't really take pride in it. It wasn't important to him. But he could have been a lot more macho than he was. But yeah, no, he definitely was.
Well, I think he had I'm not going to say macho, but he had a little streak to him that could rise up. You saw it sometimes. You were like, whoa, where did that come from? I remember going to movie theaters with him, and if somebody was making noise next to him, in the seat in front of him or the seat behind him, he would tell them to shut up, no matter who it was.
Yeah,
And
that's
sometimes
true.
they were like a group of people. And I'd be like, Tom, man, what are you doing? He's like, no, man, they can go sit somewhere else. And I said, oh, we can go sit somewhere else, man. They're talking. And he had that certain streak to him that was kind of.
That's true.
funny.
I think I remember him doing something like that when we went to the movies too. Yeah.
I remember that too.
And and what's the definition of macho? Because I once heard a good report of Tom. How do I say this delicately? With a lady. So a friend to a friend said like, oh yeah, Tom was very passionate or whatever. I don't know how to say this without just being embarrassed.
It's
but,
all right. Don't be embarrassed. I mean, he was passionate, and he was a flirt. God help you if you brought a single woman around him.
Look, Carl,
he
I don't
was
think
like all over them like bees to honey.
Yeah.
I mean,
Carl, I don't
I
think
mean,
there's anything you could say to us that would shock us about Tommy.
Good.
Tom,
And
when
to
I
me,
met-
it's
when
the
I- when I
highest
met
compliment.
Tommy-
To me, it's the
when I
highest
met
compliment.
Tommy, I
So-
was I was introduced as one of Nick's girlfriends. Gosh, this was 79, I guess. And he immediately took me out to lunch and was very flirtatious and had some agenda. And I was like, oh, it's not gonna happen, Tom, And of course, life revealed itself, and I eventually became his sister. And we would have these monthly phone calls, and it was often about soliciting female advice, especially when he would have a girlfriend on the West Coast that he would be visiting. And often, not often, because I put a stop to it, it was about talking about technique and trying to interpret something or that the woman might have said or done. And he was at a loss on how to respond. So he had the veneer of the very subtle, debonair, 007 identity, but internally he was trying to match it always.
Well, he was never very good with social cues,
Yeah.
body language and things like
Exactly.
that.
Yes.
That was my.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Which is surprising for his improv. You're supposed to be improv. You're supposed to read the room or read the moment or read the line. But in real life, he missed it. It was like that Tom.
I think
especially if it was a female.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
because he was more Peter, Dora, everybody, Ian. I think it's because he was more of a director. In other
Yeah.
words, he was good at controlling other people in an improv situation. I'm going to make you this person. I'm going to make you this. Or
Right.
if he was shooting a movie,
Structured
you're doing
situation,
this, you're
yes.
doing this. But yes, as far as the read, not strong.
But I think that's also what made him funny as a comedian on stage, because the obvious thing, and he went somewhere else, and you were like, "What? Where's Tom going?" You know, I just fed him this thing. It's this. Okay, we'll go here. You know, because he's very unconventional that way, and I give him credit for that as an improvisational performer. But
Oh,
that's just watching.
I don't. It was one of the things that he was a failure at. Really was really listening. He got an idea and he would jam it into the scene, but the listening not so good.
I would
Well,
give
it's
you that.
interesting with our movies, you know, that Chris, of course, directed our movies and in the beginning, but then Tom seemed to really be into manipulating reality with his video editing prowess, right, Chris? I mean, he took your movies and he made like 15 more movies out of your movies,
Yes.
rearranging scenes and putting things and making the beginning the end and vice versa, right? I mean, he was like,
It's true.
and then he would even re-record the audio, you know, if it didn't work, and he'd get me, he'd say, Saley, I need you to come here and say, no, I can't do that for you on tape or something like that, just one line. Okay, so I finally get around there and I do one line, and then he puts it in the video in a plot sequence that only he understood. Right? I mean, all these movies that he made out of movies, right? Very
He was trying to make he did make a movie of Chicago City Limits, so our sort of improv alma mater, and he kept sending me them and said, "This is the final one." And then finally, I was like, "Tom, we both know it's not." So 2 days later, he'd been working feverishly.
Yeah.
And I would get another version. Final. No, it's not, Tom.
While we're there for 1 second, and Ian, I know you know most of this. I went over a couple of times to see Peter at Tom's apartment, trying to see if there was like a final version on the computer. Again, a final quote unquote version. And Peter told me you were in town, and he said, "Oh, Nick is very good with the computer, but I think it's on an external hard drive. I don't think it's on the computer." And I think, you know, that what's on the computer, I think, are guide files.
No, he does have external hard drives with the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Do you
I
know
got,
where they are, Nick?
Yeah, I thought they're in his room, I think.
I mean, I
I
got
mean,
a
have you
fairly,
identified which ones have the movie?
I also
Oh,
have his movies on
Hold
external
on, I
hard
think we have
drive.
more guests. Is someone
have
else
his
coming?
movie.
I'll go check it.
we do, I did put up the, what I thought was the final version on our on Tom's website, you know, tomsoter.com. So it's sitting there.
Oh.
Yeah, I did that.
Oh.
So check it out.
Tsunami. Woo.
Check
I
it
mean,
out. All right,
like,
cool.
Sense and Nonsense was about the New York Improv Squad.
Yes.
And then the movie about Second City, that was called
Yes, The Power of Yes.
The Power of Yes. Yeah, so I put that up on the site. Yeah, Tom Soter.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Okay,
You're
Peter. Well,
welcome.
at least I'm just happy I got to see you a couple of times.
Well, you know, Tom's YouTube channel,
it's
I
good.
believe, still
I've
exists.
got-
I believe Tom's YouTube channel still exists.
Okay,
And there's a lot of stuff on there.
I'm gonna go there now.
Now, I understand there's going to be an improv museum opening somewhere in Brooklyn. Did you hear about that, guys?
I didn't. I've been playing with that idea in my head, but like all ideas that I play with in my head, I knew it would never come to fruition.
No, I
for
think
me.
it's happening. I think it's Chicago's Second City is opening some kind of improv space with a museum. I read
Well,
about
I know
it.
they're opening an improv space in Williamsburg with
Right, and there's going to be a
a
museum
theater.
in there.
and a bar. Going to be a museum?
Well, it's likely to be Second City's history, I would imagine, since they have such rich.
I thought it was the history of improv.
Right. And Ian, I don't know if you've read a book like Sam Wasson's Improv Nation. Basically, when somebody writes a history of improv, it's almost like nothing else exists except Second City and then UCB.
Right.
A couple of peripheral mentions of one or two other things, but it's like Chicago city limits, has never existed, apparently.
Yeah, the groundlings.
Because we're in this little Zoom thing. I mean, Nick is upstairs because he has COVID.
Yeah, there's two Tom Soter
Brian's
channels.
on
One have
Zoom.
182 videos,
You're welcome. You and your wife. We understand you got this late. If you and your wife want to
and
come
the
over,
other has 17.
I live on 188 Claremont. Welcome.
Peter,
Oh, I
go on
see.
mute.
Just even when I just put Tom's name in, the Power of Yes came up. An
Yeah,
hour and 11 minutes.
I uploaded that.
So we're in a Zoom in my house.
Unless
I'm
you,
gonna
Alan.
Go
Zoom
on
in your
mute.
house. If you want to go on the Zoom on your phone,
He
Who's
doesn't
Peter
quite get it.
talking to?
all right, we'll give Alan a call. He's got a Zoom link, but call up Alan. and
Is that Cindy you're talking to, Pete? Is that Sinclair?
He's not
Pete?
listening to us.
very well, but we're still
Because I
going on.
did send Sinclair the link.
What was
Is
that?
it okay if we send the link for this to other people?
Of course, by all means, of course.
While we're waiting.
Peter, you
Nice.
have to put it on
Very
mute next
nice.
time,
Sorry about that.
because we couldn't hear anything else but you.
Sorry, that was Cindy.
I
trying to
sent
get in.
him the email off of the link.
Yeah, he's gonna try to get in. He was in front of Tommy's place, and then
Okay.
So
So
he's
I
gonna-
wanted to read you all something my dad wrote in 2007 on an email to me. Changing subjects. An article in the August 20 New Yorker, Parallel Play by Tim Page, is a memoir outlining his living with Asperger's syndrome. Never heard of it before, which brought to mind many of our Tommy's peculiarities and fixations. His sometimes amazing total recall of Oscar winners, other Hollywood and TV trivia, as well as U.S. political and Victorian literary dates, etc., etc. Also, his seeming sexual diffidence, his heightened personal sensitivities, and low awareness of the sensitivities of others, etc. Not that knowing all the Asperger's stuff means much, it just makes the oddnesses seem less odd. I'd be interested in your and Dora's reactions. That's George over there. He wrote that.
Hmm.
When he thought Tommy had Asperger's, or he finally came to that idea.
Well, we used to play Star Quote, where you'd have to quote something from Star Trek, and then you'd have to be able to tell the other guy which episodes it was in. For example, if you said, "He's dead, Jim," then you'd have to name the 5 or 6 episodes where McCoy said that,
It's
Right.
only 5 or 6.
Well, probably more than that, but
Okay.
like it could be a very short quote, like they said there would be more, or something like that. They said more would follow. So that, okay, yeah, that's Return of the Archons, that first season. You have to say what the season it was and the episode.
Yeah, well, he had quite a memory for
Tom
that.
was better than me with Star Quote, I think.
Well, I still have times that I want to make Star Trek references, and like Tom's not there, and it really bothers me because he matched me in Star Trek nerdiness or love. I'm not sure I want to pathologize everything, and
Well,
that's
you could call up Alan.
how much are you into it, Alan?
Well, it's the big boss. Pardon me, you guys. My boss.
His boss is calling up to find out where a quote from Star Trek comes from, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's Captain Kirk calling him.
Well, the Steve Jobs based the iPhone on the
Communicator.
communicator, yeah.
Ah.
The original, an iteration of a handheld screen from Apple was the Newton, back in the 90s.
Mhm.
Still have mine, but it
Oh,
came with,
wow. That
it
could be
came with a-
valuable someday.
it came with a flip screen, just like the communicator.
And the early, there was a generation of Motorola's that were flip phones. And then, of course, all phones became flip phones.
Well, this isn't a flip phone. It's just a cover. It's a
Oh,
not
I see. Got
cover,
it. Got it.
just
Like,
like a
hold
communicator.
on. I'm going to get something.
So Pete, I was wondering, have you been able to sell the comics or is something going on with that or?
Gift from the Soter family to me.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah,
Tom-
Soter, he liked that a lot, that
Tom's communicator
Tom's
phone.
communicator. Yeah, he was thrilled when he got that sucker. I remember that.
Yeah, I think Eva has a story on that one.
Hi guys. Hi everyone.
Hi, Eva.
Hi. Yeah, that was fun playing with that with Tommy. He had just gotten it and I was visiting New York and he, as he often did, asked me to help him with some tech thing or something. So he asked me to help him set it up. And it was really fun. He's so playful and I was in the other room and he's in this room and he's, communicating with me from another planet. And did I get the message? And we went back and forth a few times and he gave that sweet little giggle. He was so delighted by it. So that was fun. And I think he had it connected to his phone. And so he could actually, what was it? I don't know if he could actually speak into that. I think it was like a receiver, like he could actually speak into
Yes.
the communicator, right? Instead of his phone.
Yeah,
So
it works as a phone.
Right. But you have to connect, like Bluetooth it or something to your actual phone.
Okay.
It doesn't take a SIM card or anything.
Yeah,
But
I have not used it as a phone. I just sort of like it as a Auger Duarte. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, Mom found it.
Okay, wow.
It was so fun just seeing him get such a kick out of that, and he's always, it's just a case because I think they gave it to Carl. Yeah. So that's the case in the box. We should probably give that to you, Carl, unless you have a case in a box.
Everybody see that?
Well, what is that?
That's the Apple Newton from about the mid-90s.
So that's what they modeled after that.
They based it on the
Yeah,
communicator.
wow.
Cool. Yeah.
Totally.
They always said, "Oh no, it fits in your."
Communicator. That's fun.
The comics are up for auction. Half of them are, some are sold, some are still going on. The Bond posters are going up this weekend on the 28th at Heritage Auction House.
Hmm.
So I'm still waiting to hear the final number, but I have no clue yet because third party is handling them.
Hmm.
Oh, there's Cindy calling me again.
City?
Sort of Sinclair, Tom Sinclair. Yeah.
Oh, Sydney.
Yeah,
I
Sydney.
thought he said the city was calling me. You haven't moved your garbage, Mr. Soter.
He should be
The
calling
city.
you, Alan.
It's Ed Koch. Yeah.
And he should be calling you.
Well, my phone's here. I'm ready to take a call from Mr. Sinclair. You know what I'll do? I'll text him.
But you could get a call from Mayor Koch.
Yeah. How am I doing? Yeah, right.
You are doing.
If he can't get on the Zoom, maybe someone can FaceTime him.
That's not a bad idea.
If he has an iPhone, I don't know.
Some of the
Aw,
great photos around the house.
yeah.
Christian, how you doing?
He's sleeping.
Mr. Doherty?
I'm doing okay, Carl. Thank you for asking. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and you're welcome. It's nice to see your face.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. Yeah. I miss the old friend. He was a good guy. And he loved to read and fraternize, with people, and I miss him.
Yeah. And I loved how loyal he was to all his core friends, like the fact that you and Alan and Cindy go back so far and just,
Yeah.
never, you know, flagged in that loyalty and in keeping all of you together in different ways, no matter where life took you and through what travails. I just think it's an incredible testament to Tom's character.
He did make
What I
copies of
want,
you that
what?
he kept in his apartment and never opened, never talked to.
He made what?
Copies, clones.
Oh, yes, yeah.
of
His
each.
clones.
Yeah, I remember I got arrested once. And so I'm in central booking and they go, okay, you got to come up with bail money. So who'd I think of? Soter. I go, "Sir, Tom, I need $300 to get out of jail. No problem, Alan. I'll be right down." But then they said when they not to what's the word, digress too much. Then public defender said, "This is ridiculous. This man never should have been arrested." And okay, we're going to waive the bail. So I said, "Tom, you don't need to come down with the $300. I'm okay." But he was the first person I thought of, obviously, right? I mean, he's so reliable, and he's just would be right there for any friend. He would just do, yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. And he connected a lot of different people to different people. So he was a connector.
He was a great connector. That's
I
right.
mean, on the today, all those people online were talking about how they met so and so through Tom and such through Tom, and Tom was there. It's people met people through him, through his improv, which he was relentless about, but also just because his character was, he always was trying to connect somebody else. You could always go to him and he would try to find some way to help you out. It's weird. And
So-
some weird, when I was looking for work, he would try to find me jobs with, building management, you'd be great at it. I was like, well, what do I know about building management? Whatever it was, if he could help you, he'd try in his own world. You know what I mean? I miss that
Well,
about him.
speaking of which, Tom, when he got a new iMac, gave me his old iMac. Now, at first, it was dead on arrival. The hard drive was dead, and I was like, "Tom, I got to pay money just for this gift." But then, after paying $225 or something for a new hard drive and letting it sit pretty much on my desk for a year, because then during the pandemic, it became a godsend because I had this big screen and I was able to see students on that large screen. And I'm on this computer right now. So I'm on Tom's computer. And even though it is from 2011 and slow, it's great. And in this weird way, not as much as Tom. Tom, preserved everything about your family, as you well know, in documentaries, everything about his friends in documentaries, Arc of a Life. But, I also like totems of people that I care about. And so I love that, like, I'm on Tom's computer every day.
Yeah, that is nice. I have a couple of things. Like I grabbed his article about Patrick McGowan. He had framed it. And I think I asked you for that, Peter. I have it in my house. And yeah, right. It's good to have these physical things that link one to Tom.
Every family is different. My sister is like one picture of my parents, and she's good to go. And she came into my house and she was like, "Oh, it's quite a shrine to mom and dad," which is the way Tom would say, "Oh, quite a shrine to mom and dad." But it's because if you saw the other wall, you'd see I have all these paintings of my mom and paintings that she painted. But I have things of Tom, and Ian, I don't have anything of yours. You'll have to give me something.
I left something there last time I was over.
Okay. I thought I heard something ticking.
I've never been to your place.
Okay.
Did Soter, he did have a coonskin cap at one point, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, I think I saw it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Had a what?
Coonskin cap.
Oh, yeah.
I think he had a musket too.
It's that macho side we were talking about earlier.
You know, he had such a
walk
thrill
around
when he met
Morningside
Fess
with the
Parker.
musket.
We were down in LA and we went to Fess Parker's place and he met Fess. That really made his time. And he bought some, and then from then on, he'd buy Fess wine. He'd always say, Nick, let's get some Fess. Fess Parker had a winery.
Yeah, yeah. And so did Raymond Burr. Didn't Raymond Burr have a winery as well?
I don't know about
I don't
that.
think he had a winery,
Oh.
but he kind of hit on Tommy, and Tommy didn't realize it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Because it was like Tommy had a way of like trying to seek out his idols and interview them. It's kind of a weird thing, but he did it almost everybody but Sean Connery, right? He's the only guy I didn't get, I thought. But he did spend some time with Perry Mason or with Raymond Burr. And there's photos of him, you know, like in his room, in his hotel, and Tommy's grinning, and this guy's grinning. There's a lot of them. Raymond.
Burr just showed one of Tommy with Raymond Burr in his
Right.
office.
He's got one, yeah, signed one. But you know, like Patrick McGowan, he got to see him. The guys from Monty Python, he met them. You know, he got to meet John Barry. That was a big thrill for him. Stan Lee, you know, a lot of people.
Oh, it's Tom Sinclair is joining us. Mr.
All
Sinclair,
right.
good to see you, Cindy. I'm sorry it took so long for us to connect with this little call, but we've been, sharing memories, right?
I don't know what Cindy got. Peter wrote to me at 5:24 p.m. So I have an excuse this time for my lateness. I don't want Ian to think like, oh, there goes Carl being late again.
Oh, I was late too.
Okay.
All kind of changed up. We were going to do it at like at home, be all together, but my brother got COVID, so we had to quickly jump to Zoom. But I'm glad you guys could all make it. Tom, how are you, Tom? How are you, Cindy?
You're on mute, Cindy.
Unmute.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing okay, guys. Thanks. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. I like your sweater.
Oh, you like it?
I do. It's got nice ribs.
That was a gift from my wife a couple of seasons ago, and it's still holding up very well. So anyway.
You could say you came.
So yeah, we were up, because I had only got the message through my work email. I hadn't seen the new email about the new arrangements. So we actually went up to Tom's house and we saw Dora there, and she filled us in on what was going on. So we just hopped in a cab and came back home. And well, the rest is history. So how many are there of us? 9?
Yeah, 9, 10.
We've been reminiscing about some of Tommy's eccentricities, from Star Trek to books to movies and friendships and improv and family and
Women.
oh, women.
Yeah, well, I'm quite familiar with the books and the TV stuff, and and the comic stuff, because I was very much a part of it, and we kind of came up together that way on sort of parallel track. And in terms of the women, I don't have much insight to offer in that area, but I'm just glad you guys organized this.
Well, I noticed that Miriam left a lovely post today on Tom's Facebook page.
This was her birthday
beautiful.
also.
It was beautiful.
This was her birthday too.
That's right.
And so did Leo.
Leo, that looked like it was a great one, but I was out walking and it's like it was like 3 pages long, so I only got a.
No, Leo is very moving. I was moved by Leo.
So Tom still has a Facebook page that works?
See, he does.
Yes.
How long do Facebook pages last? Maybe forever.
I think in perpetuity. I think this is kind of a,
If you go to his page, you'll see a lot of people wished him well today.
this is kind of an issue these days of like who gets to, like, it's almost like something you should put in a will. Is like, here's a password, you know, so that you can maintain my Facebook page. And I love that it's kind of like a living memorial, and you can write something if you feel sad or miss the person. And it's kind of like a gravestone that you can chisel into at any point.
When you go visit to the
yes.
graveyard, right, you can
Yeah.
add something, some flowers that last. What's interesting to me on his Facebook page, he has a couple of pictures of him smoking cigarettes and in a very debonair sort of way. You know, the cigarette is out to here, right? Remember those days?
I remember when Soter
Smoked
was,
for a brief period. It had something to do with medication or with the Parkinson's. I'm not sure which.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
did not know this.
You didn't know? And when he died in the apartment, there was a few cartons of cigarettes here.
Yeah, it was a strange thing to see Tom smoking cigarettes, because I had never seen him smoke before in all the years I've known him. So it was kind of shocking. But I think he did it for like 6 months or something. And
Right.
and then according to him, he stopped, you know, I guess he still had cigarettes left, but
I like the Ian story. Ian, do you know which one I'm going to tell you? Where he put the cigarette out in his pocket, his coat caught on fire.
Oh, vague memories. Yes.
You
Yeah.
told me that. I was like,
Yeah.
that sounds like Tommy.
Yeah. I guess he was flipping the end off like some people do when they've only half smoked a cigarette. I remember when I was a teenager, I remember doing it, and he must have put it in his pocket.
Hmm.
Yeah, he said that he had stopped, but we caught him, Leah and I caught him smoking.
Like he's a teen.
And what
He
did
was trying to give it up,
what
and
did
he
say?
actually he quit several times, and then you know, went back to smoking several times.
Yeah,
When you caught him, Ian, what did he say?
I can't remember. It's funny though.
I have a feeling because of the Parkinson's and the medication, you know, the nicotine charge was like, whoa.
I know what it was. He was worried about putting on weight.
That's right. That's right.
That's what
That's
it was.
That's right.
Yeah, because he developed a paunch and he was a bit embarrassed by
Right.
it.
He was very embarrassed. He kept telling me, would you take my picture? Take my picture. I kept, you know, it was in his apartment with his phone, you know, he was doing the profile, and I made a joke about Alfred Hitchcock. That wasn't very funny, but he said, come on. And he'd say, well, do I look fat? So, do I look fat? I said, well, you know, Tom, when a woman asks you that, you know, it's like, you know, when you're trying to defuse the bomb and you're asking which of these little wires should you cut? But anyway, Tom, you know, but he would get pints of ice cream sometimes, and like just
Yes, Turkey Hill, like it's
Turkey Hill.
horrible ice
Yeah.
cream.
That is correct. So he was fighting a battle. Yeah. Yeah. Do I look fat? It was kind of funny, really. I mean, it's good.
What did you say, Alan?
Well, I said, well, you know, I think you've lost a little bit of weight, Tom. And he'd say, well, you think so? And you know, he kept wanting me to take the picture and send him the pictures, and I did. By the bus stop outside, and by his in the apartment, and yeah.
I think he posted some on Facebook too. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, he did post them because I think he was sort of like, I think I've had this insight about Tom before. There was a kind of defiance about Tom. It's like, you know what? This is who I am. This is it. You know, so what if I'm fat? Or so what if I'm the way I am? You know, like Popeye the Sailor, right? I am what I am. I am
what I am. Definitely.
So-
Definitely.
Yeah,
With his Parkinson's, when he was doing the show, he would try and hide it. He put his hands in his pockets, which always looked so bad, you know, because he's had And I said to him, Tom, you got to start the show by telling people that you have Parkinson's. And I was so proud of him that he actually did it. He
did
did start doing it in a very light way, but comedic way
It was
before every show.
great advice, Ian. It was
Mhm.
great advice. It diffused it and it let the audience just relax and watch the show
Well, they were
actually be on his side.
on his side instantly.
And
I think he took that advice in life too. He afterwards, when you told him to just come out, just tell people you got it.
Yeah.
He was more like that with other people, not in improv.
well, he didn't want to talk about it for a long period. And
Long time.
then he would find, he wrote a story about it, that of course, needless to say, right? You know, about my Parkinson's, and
Yeah.
then he'd be comfortable with it. He would talk about it.
I was part of the lying crew for a while. People would say like, do you know anything about Tom? It's like, is Tom okay? And it's like, yeah, he's fine. And because he doesn't seem, well. And I said, well, yeah, I've noticed a little bit of something, but not aware of anything. I don't know if I said he was fine or maybe I said like, I have no idea. Maybe that was my compromise.
Yeah, he kept a diary at certain times, and I think that he gave me, or I was able to read diary excerpts from when he first got the symptoms of Parkinson's, and he denied it. Of course, he went through denial. Well, I don't think I have this. I don't really have this. My doctor says I don't have this. And then you keep reading the entries, and 3 or 4 months later says he accepts it. Yeah, I've got to deal with this. I've got this. Yeah, I don't know. You guys, Peter, Nick, have you ever seen those diary entries? Because
I've seen some of his diary
Yeah,
entries. They're
yeah.
very, very hard to decipher. I almost have to get AI intelligence.
Oh,
to
you're
just-
talking about because of course he couldn't. He would write. In other words, when he would type,
when he was type, you could read it.
typing.
But
Well,
when he wrote it,
when
impossible.
oh yeah, it's very difficult to read his kitchen
Oh, my God.
chicken scratching. But
And I've got like 40 volumes of his diaries from the time from when he was like from 1965 to
Yeah.
now. And they're thick, but you can't barely, I don't know how to
and
decipher.
another thing he would do, and you see this on his computer, he would type stuff that was completely jumbled and garbled because he couldn't type, and then later on he would go back and clean it up. And there are still some of those things I believe that he wrote that he didn't clean up, right? Which is very difficult to decipher.
I saw Ian's message that he has to go at 7. And before anyone leaves, maybe we can sing happy birthday with a placeholder. It's not his favorite ice cream, but something. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy
birthday
to
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
dear
Tom.
Happy
birthday
to
you.
Aw.
Oh, you're killing
Gosh, we
me.
wish you were here.
I wish he was here too.
Oh, look at that apartment. Wow.
Is his apartment still untouched? It looks
No,
I think
everything's
Peter's
still
not
in place.
I think Peter's selling one item a week.
No. Peter's done an amazing job.
Yes, he
clearing it up
has.
And actually making it livable for when we arrive.
Wait, is that a poster of Tom there? Did you just pass that? Oh, no, it's Hitchcock.
Very funny.
Oh, Ian, that's terrible.
Well, we were just talking about
There's
it.
his Star Trek world up there, if you see. Look at the top
Up
shelf,
there.
it's all Star Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek world. Here's the
Spock.
Laurel and Hardy.
W.C. Fields, or was that Laurel and Hardy?
Laurel,
No, I
that
saw-
was
Marty.
Laurel and Hardy.
But what
and
about the top
and
shelf?
WC
Top.
Fields.
Up
It
to
is
top
W.C.
shelf.
Fields, right?
Yeah, WC Fields cookie jar.
Spock.
Oh, that's Holmes up at the top,
And
isn't
that's
it?
home. That's
Spock.
Spock, Spock. And then he's got his Bond features. These are all his Sean Connery guys.
Yeah.
And then this is his Marvel shrine. Now, if I had boxes for all this stuff, it'd be more valuable. Those things over there are by George, those drawings actually, when he was in college.
It's one of
Of course, the long hallway of DVDs and
Yeah.
CDs.
wow.
Unbelievable.
How did that auction go?
It's still going on. It's still going on. The first wave went, and now we're waiting on the second wave. The second wave is the 28th of the Hitchcock posters. I mean, the Bond posters.
Ah, okay.
And then the other half of the comics are, the comics is a little confusing for me because they've only told me some of the lots that they've sold, and they sold some other ones. They haven't told me what they are yet, but it's went pretty well.
Okay, well, that's good.
No,
good
it
to hear.
went pretty well. It went pretty well. But unfortunately, the Tomits they're not like super mint condition. They were super fine condition. They're Bronze Age, not Golden Age. They're la la la. You learn more and more about it. But they were quite a lot of comics.
Yeah, for sure.
Indeed.
The Bond quote that I remember Tom quoting more than any other was, "Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to die."
Hi.
He would
That was
always
one of
be
his
quoting.
favorites. One of his favorites, definitely.
Well, thank you.
I gotta go.
Good to see
All
you,
right.
Ian.
All
Hi,
right.
Ian.
Bye.
Well, I gotta go too, because I'm joining Ian on something. I'm sorry I couldn't join earlier. The Phillies just won. I'm a huge Phillies fan, so.
Was that game the fourth win?
Yeah, so they're going to the World Series now.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Good.
National League Championship. But I just want to say, I miss Tom greatly, and I know from having childhood friends who I still keep in touch with, Alan and Christian and Cindy, you guys, you have a special bond, and Tom will always be part of you, so,
That's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Sorry I'm here so briefly.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you,
very
Tim.
much.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
Sorry we didn't get to see you guys in person, especially Alan, Christian, and Sinclair, Cindy. Hopefully next time, and so grateful to all of you for keeping the spirit alive.
Well, I kept Tom's sites up. They're still up there, and I'm gonna,
Thank you.
$150, but that's not much. So,
Thank you.
for the
I
hosting
just-
fee and this and
I just wanted to say that I do some spiritual tripping, and when I've meditated a time or two, I've gone to sit on this white bench, the white marble bench, and Tommy has come and just been thrilled that he's remembered. Just a huge grin on his face. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to say that.
Yeah, he's one of the most loved people that I know of who's passed. I mean, when he died, I can't remember, any similar outpouring of affection, from so many people for one individual. So he really touched
it was
many people.
remarkable. And I put that up too. I put that up too on the site. All his friends, the improv friends, and of course the three of us talking about Tom. I was right. I still cannot remember such an outpouring of sincere affection. It was really remarkable because a lot of people die and a lot of people say nice things, but it's different. This was real personal connections that people talked about, and it's so unusual. I think that there were so many people that felt a strong personal connection to Tom. Really,
Yeah.
really.
The other thing about Tom that sticks with me is the tremendous spirit that he had. I mean, in the face of the Parkinson's, he was busier than anybody I know.
Like,
between it.
like all the superheroes on the shelves.
Yeah,
He was I'm going to use a fancy word, indefatigable. Um, and just kept, yeah, Ever Ready Bunny just kept going.
yeah, he kept going. He's like, God, really amazing. You know, you never thought the bunny would run down. But not to sound,
You
try
said that word indefatigable. Well, he had a character named Fatty Gay.
Fatty K.
You remember Fatty Gay, Cindy?
Yeah, that does ring a bell
From the
actually.
from the French word fatigue?
Yeah. Fatty.
Ah,
Fatty
okay.
Gay. That was one of his characters.
Uh, Gosh. Oh,
Remember he used to have hamsters
Sure.
that's right.
and he named them different names.
Hmm.
In the little room between the two rooms, he had his hamsters.
I think first there were rat finks, then there were hamsters, I believe.
Well, rat finks weren't real, but hamsters were.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Rat finks were real to us at the time.
Yeah.
But no,
But
yeah, I
how
do
about
remember.
he never, when he would retire a pair of sneakers, he'd put them in a box in like a coffin and he'd label them and he'd put them in his shelf in his closet, right?
Yep.
He'd bury his sneakers the year whenever they died.
Old faithful.
Yeah.
Died 1966.
Right. He'd have a
Yeah.
date of death on them.
God.
Yeah, I still remember talking to Tom about, Tom, do you really need your third grade homework? Do you really need to keep everything from third grade and fourth grade and fifth grade in your closet? And I'm not sure if I ever convinced him he didn't need them anymore, but he
Well,
had.
if you look at this house, you never convinced him.
This
For
could
sure.
be one reason why we were friends. I have similar possessions. Now, the difference is I bought a high-speed scanner and I'm thinking, well, someday I will scan all those things. I'm now into digital clutter. I don't want physical clutter. I'd love to just get rid of everything that, if you see a ladder behind me, there's a loft area, just like enough for storage. But yeah, I have not thrown out like anything I've ever written pretty much back in the days when, you typed or wrote with a pencil.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't throw out much. That's for sure. Only a
Yeah,
book that
it's a
somebody else
great
might have
writer.
read. He'll throw that out and buy a new one of the same book. Yeah.
I still have the letters he sent me from Greece. He would write me letters, and I write him letters. I was at camp or whatever it was, and he was in Greece, and he would write me his. And then we got into exchanging audio cassettes. We'd have audio letters. So he would say, "Well, here I am in Athens, and this and that." He'd go over this and that. Well, there's a Bond movie around the corner.
Oh, Pete's
I
back.
looked at, I saw this, and he'd send me the cassette, and then I'd record another cassette, and I mail it to Tom. I have some of those cassettes.
Well, yeah, he didn't like going to Greece, even though he came with us every summer. But you know the story, right?
Yeah,
When he said to George,
yeah,
why do we always got to go to Greece? Can't we go to Kentucky?
yeah, yeah. That's in one of his books. Yes, of course I know that story. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The one time he really liked going to Greece was with Chris and Alan. That was his
We had the
favorite.
best time, right, Chris?
That was the favorite trip he ever took to
We had the
Greece.
best time. I mean, I can still remember that.
I mean, we were on a yacht. We cruised the Greek islands. We were with this fancy French couple that was partying like crazy. We were young guys. Chris, you were in your element, man.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Yo, you were from another planet, man. Brother from another planet. That trip. I was like, what, 12 or something. How old were you guys? 16?
Yeah.
Well, we were as old. You're how old are you now?
No, but I'm saying I was 60. I'm 62, but I'm saying
No,
were
we
you
were
guys
4 years
16
older,
years
all
old?
four of us.
You
so,
guys were
yeah.
like 16 years old, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a big trip.
it was an amazing trip, fabulous trip.
Tommy loved it.
What else?
Was Jonathan, do you have any early memories of my brother? Besides when he would
Yes,
bang on the door when you guys were playing music late at night or something.
I remember, all you guys, Simi and Sally and, not so much specific memories, but I remember, you guys used to get together and have your whole little scene, which was very different than I was getting together with, Nick. And so there wasn't a lot of acknowledgement, but, I don't remember a lot of conflicts. You say they used to bang on the door? Perhaps, but I remember seeing you guys shooting some movies and doing some cartoons and I would look in on that, and I was quite impressed with the productivity, the artistry, productivity. There's a lot going on.
Do you remember Tommy's magazines that he put out for high school? Those little,
Yeah, sure.
'cause these guys were all writers in those magazines.
I know, and I used to see them, getting together for their editorial meetings or whatever it was. I mean, when did I start hanging out very heavily at the Soter residence? Well, I had a few different periods, but I think it really kicked in around about 1969 or something. But
You said the other day you were there for the blackout of 1960.
that's true. There was a few different periods where I hung out pretty heavily, but I think when I was younger, I didn't really hang out there all the time. But when I got to be about 15, I was there pretty much all the time. So yeah, no, I remember you guys working hard on your projects, and that is quite admirable.
You remember you guys, you had a Xerox machine? Copier,
It was a ditto. It was not a Xerox machine. It was a
mimeograph?
mimeograph. That's it. Mimeograph. Yeah.
That was a big thing for him, the
Yeah.
mimeograph.
We mimeograph the issues, the magazines. That's right. That's right.
Right.
And what was the title of the magazine?
Well, there was a
There's-
bunch. There was the Monkeys Mag, right?
Warthog Reader.
Warthog Reader, Strange and
Strange and
Unknown,
Unknown,
Mystery
ERB,
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
the Edgar Rice
E-
Burroughs Pellucidarian,
ARB, Pellucidarian, right?
Mystery Magazine, which was a little bit unimaginatively titled, but
which was that, City?
Mystery Magazine.
Magazine. Yeah, Mystery Magazine. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh.
Sort of would always tell this anecdote that like we had to print these copies of the magazine for distribution at school. We were selling them. And so I came over one night really late to print the mag. So we had to reproduce the magazine on the mimeograph machine, and we were running out of ink. And like I was just like taking this bottle and just trying to put a little more ink, so we could crank the thing and put out the magazines. And so then Soter kept saying, and I, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We have to make more copies. We need more copies. And I said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we go get some chocolate syrup and some rice paper, and we'll print them on rice paper with chocolate syrup. And then after people buy them, they can eat them. So Tom would repeat that to a lot of people and thought that was very funny.
I've heard that. But then he would also have he'd write the magazines. The four of you guys would write your articles, but then he would have these other like fake names for half the people who wrote articles, right?
Sure. Ray Parker, right.
Ray Parker, had all kinds of fake names.
Yeah, we did that. That's for sure.
God. What I'm really thankful for is that Tom was such an archivist that he kept all this stuff, because God knows I'm, very careless with, stuff. And, but Tom kept it, the tapes that we did,
Yeah.
the magazines, the stories, a lot of stuff that would have been otherwise lost if it was up to me or Christian or Alan to keep track of, so thank God he kept track of all that stuff.
Well, I remember
Now are those archives there on 122nd Street?
They are filed They are there.
Wow, okay.
Tom would be bedeviled whenever like a hard drive crashed. He'd spent hours and hours on the phone with Apple trying to get it resuscitated. He really would get
This-
pissed about
It's not Alan Sealy.
Yeah, I would just, I'm, he has so many hard drives. He must have went through 1,000,000 hard drives. I just,
they're all sitting there, aren't they?
yeah.
So I mean, that's like a project for somebody. I mean, I haven't
Oh, yeah.
retired yet, but you know, maybe Christian could archive, retrieve.
Yeah,
some
that'd
hard
be
drives.
great. I mean, my brother Nick has gone through a lot of them and he's labeled what's on a lot of them, right,
Yeah.
Nick?
Yeah. I did.
Mm.
He has his movies, you know, he liked those movies he makes. He would spend an incredible amount of time.
And the thing was amazing about Tom is that even with the Parkinson's, which made it very difficult for him to do fine motor control of like the mouse,
Right.
he was so dogged. He would just keep on going until he got it. It was
Right.
awesome. I mean, I couldn't believe it that so much effort, you know, but he was willing to put the effort. He just went ahead and got it done. It's like, wow.
Right. And it might have taken him twice as long as
Right,
somebody
or
else.
At least
10 times as long.
10 times as long. He just, he would just do it. I mean, a lot of people would have given up. I certainly would have, but not Tom, right?
Nope.
True example for for all of us.
I just sent you all a photo of a poster in what is now my bedroom of Flowers Are for Funerals. I had thought that was Saley, but it says that it is in fact Chris Griggs,
Yeah.
Oh,
the
yeah.
007 character. So
Right.
it's in your emails.
Thanks. Yeah, Chris was like my successor, you know,
Right. He was the follow up to.
next generation.
He was the son of Sorelli. Maybe though, if Tom was still around, he'd probably do one about the grandson of Henry Sorelli,
Absolutely.
or the granddaughter, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, it'd be like Bond, you know. There could be a
Yeah.
female Henry Sorelli, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I thank God that I knew Tom for as long as I did. You know, third grade. You know, we kind of bonded and became friends, and you know, throughout the years since, there were some years when we didn't really see each other much, but the last 15 or so years, the group kind of got back together. You know, Alan and myself, Christian and Tom, and largely through Tom's,
Yeah, Tom would keep insisting that we all get together. Yes. Tom kept us meeting. And, you know, before COVID, you know, we'd meet like every month, right? Pretty much. We'd reliably go to the restaurant downstairs from Tom's. What was it called? You know, that place. And
the kitchenette, was it?
Kitchenette, that's correct.
Would banter, would it be invariably about old TV shows or about your current life or what's going on, or where did you guys go with, or new projects that Tommy was into, or where did you guys go?
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay.
But sometimes we'd watch an old TV show, like Tom would whip
Right.
out an episode of Superman.
Yeah.
Because that's how I would connect with him. He would
After
say,
dinner,
"Hey,
we'd
let's
go up and watch, right, an episode of Superman or something Tom was
Exactly.
into. Yeah.
exactly." There would be a combination of a meal and let's chat, but hey, let's go watch blah blah blah. So you know that was how he connected, invariably through some kind of video. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh.
Yeah. When
Something
did, your
about
mom, when did your mom die? Because that was, I remember.
2011.
What time?
2011.
Because Tom would go certainly once a week he would go. He went there a lot, didn't he, to visit your mom?
He went in the beginning a lot, and then as my mom deteriorated, it was really hard for him.
Yeah,
Because he just didn't see the point, he
Yeah.
was so mad that she was so gone. That
yeah,
it was really hard for, and then the other people on the hall really freaked him out. To be around so many people that were kind of Alzheimer-y and
yeah,
he just
yeah.
he felt he was in a bad movie, or he always talked about I feel like I'm in a Fellini flick, or he'd always equate it with some kind of.
No, Tom had some fears, he would get
Yeah, it was
sick
very
about certain things.
fearful for him to go over there.
Yes, he had, fears. Yeah, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
In terms of his Parkinson's too, he didn't really want to talk about what's going to happen. I don't know if he did with you guys, but
No,
if I
he-
ever went into like, Tom, what happens if you can't make it up these stairs? Have you thought about moving to the ground floor? Or what if you need a wheelchair? What if you need an elevator? He was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, that was like the famous thing about not preparing a will. It's like he didn't want to do it.
Well, yeah, he just didn't want to think about what's going to happen to him. Not, I mean, who does? But in his case, you would think he would have prepared a little bit.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that at times, the last year or so, he would share things like with me that let me know that his the Parkinson's was kind of getting worse. He'd talk about hallucinating and seeing rats in the corners and stuff.
Yeah. And worms in the sink. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yep.
Ooh.
That
and
was bad.
I
But
think
he
he'd be
knew they
aware
were hallucinating.
of things.
I was going to make a joke that seeing rats in New York City is rarely a hallucination, but the worms, I decide now it's gone too far.
Yeah, he called me in the middle of the night. He says, there's worms in my sink. What do you mean, Tom? Worms? What do you mean? Well, yeah, I could see them.
He had the super come over and take apart the sink
Yeah.
to get the
Like
worms out.
something out of H.P. Lovecraft,
Wow.
But that was only, I think, last 3 months, 4 months was the hallucinations. I don't think it was going on for years, but I could be
No.
wrong.
The last year.
COVID didn't help. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Being
Right.
cooped up
We
at home.
started those weekly Zoom chats with him, and we saw, the different ways his functioning was changing. Even on, it's hard to tell, but certainly on Zoom. And I always followed up the Zoom with a phone call with him. And, I regret that last Zoom I did not, but certainly saw a big decline in that last Zoom. He just could not stay still enough, which I hadn't seen that in a long time.
If he had not overheated, does anybody know what the prognosis of the Parkinson's would have been? In other words, should he have been expected to live another 3 years, 5 years?
It's hard to say.
10?
It's hard to say. He has had Parkinson for 17 years. He could have lived maybe another 10 years. Maybe he could have got more
Yeah.
diminished. He could have got a lot more diminished, and it would have been a different kind of life where he wasn't doing anything but sitting around shaking and being in a.
Well, so much had to do with his medication management, because besides the drugs, he was also, an array of homeopathic remedies that he was taking daily. It's still posted on his bathroom mirror. And I think, as we have spoken, we think that out of desperation from the COVID and not having social contact, he began to maybe double his meds. I don't know how much, but I think Peter discovered that he had been over medicating. So,
Well, because he wanted to be able to keep writing.
Right, he
and
wanted to
would
able to
be
keep writing
like
and-
all through the night.
Right.
And when his hands weren't working so well, he was just gonna keep
But
taking.
when he was medicated, he was able to do more.
Right, exactly.
Obviously, but it also caused him to get a little more sleepy at times, or get a little bit more dopey when he was off medication. So when he was
And-
dopey and off medication, he wasn't functioning as well, and he would sleep.
right.
So then his sleep pattern got all screwed up with COVID, because he was up all night working or sleep all day, didn't know day from night. I took 2 pills, I'll take 2 more, I'll take 6. Maybe if I take
Right.
4, what I took them, I don't know, I took them 8 hours ago. I think I took them, You
But I
ask him,
think- I-
what
I
do you,
think his demise
And he
at the
wasn't checking in with
magazine.
his doctor, right? He hadn't
Yeah.
seen his doctor since September.
in
No,
over
he
a
hadn't been
year?
to his doctor, and when the magazine was causing a lot of problems for him. There was a
Well,
guy
it's-
at the magazine who couldn't stand Tommy and was out to get him. And Tommy had the loyalty of the owner to some degree, but there was problems. And he didn't have the same stature that he had always enjoyed
Right.
at the magazine.
Yeah,
And to their credit, they kept him on, but maybe his work wasn't as good. Maybe he was not able to meet the deadlines. Maybe he was not able to function as well. I don't know.
I don't know.
And
He complained to me about, that he's just as good an editor now as he was, and that they won't let him edit stuff, and they took his column
Right.
away.
There was one guy that he
Yeah.
was rubbing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Young guy.
You know, I wrote to the owner of the mag because they did their anniversary
Carol.
issue, their 40th anniversary or whatever it was. And I said, you could have at least mentioned Tom in all of this, all the praises you give yourself. She never wrote back.
I think they just
Is
put
that-
something up on his Facebook page, didn't they?
Is
They
that
just said
Carol,
something.
Nick?
Carol said something today.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Well, I kind of always felt that Tom really kind of built that magazine from the ground up.
Yeah.
The owner, and he put in like a lot of good years, and it sort of seemed to me like they kind of did him a little disservice the last couple of years. So
Yeah, I
they
agree.
didn't show him the respect they should have. That's how it felt to me.
Well, that's the way he felt too.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
the name of the magazine?
Habitat.
Habitat.
Hmm.
It's about
But
New York co-op life and stuff.
Another
Condominium.
thing
I
is
do-
Soter,
I wanna order some more sushi though.
in Habitat, he would write
I
these
can have it
articles.
in a little while. Not yet.
Dad,
today.
you're talking, we can hear you.
He would write these articles in Habitat, and when he needed a name that he wanted to keep confidential, he'd put like Pat Drake, or like John McGowan.
Right,
And
right, right.
he put these, obviously names from Star Trek and like things like that.
Right,
And
right.
Carol like got wind of it. She got pissed off at him for doing that. He told me,
Really?
but I said, hey, look, come on. If I need a name that I have to pop in because I got to keep someone confidential, I'll put in, like Ray Parker or Pat Drake or
Yeah.
it was funny.
Why
It was amusing, but yeah, she got wind of. She didn't like that, but sort of kind of like was mad at her for not giving him that freedom anymore to do stuff like that.
He used a situation that was connected to me for an article late in his tenure there, and I was worried about my real name and having a problem with the management of the building, so I asked him to use a changed name, and he did.
Yeah, he was funny about that. I remember him running by a story with me about someone, and it was so obvious. He had told me the story before that had happened, and he's writing this story not for Habitat, for one of his books. And all he did was change the name, and I'm like, no, you can't write that. You can't publish it the way it is. It's obviously that person. If that person ever reads this, they're gonna know it's them. Come on. I know you want to tell everybody this story, but I don't think you can publish that.
Well, that's what he did with his girlfriend, Christine.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So you're talking about Christine because, like,
No, it wasn't Christine, or maybe it was Christine. I can't remember who it was. I think it was a guy.
He would write about her, especially like in his last book, and like I told him, I said, Soter, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And he did it anyway. He was determined. He was going to, because
Determined.
it's sort of as if like if he didn't do that, it was sort of like an atavistic belief. You know how they say that in New Guinea, if you take a picture, they won't let you. You've stolen their soul. It's sort of like
Not
if you
just
didn't
not just
write
that people, many people, ultra Orthodox Jews don't want the pictures.
Soter's like he had to do it. He had to memorialize it. It had to. There was something more. It was not rational. It was like he was
He
driven.
wrote a whole book on Christine.
Yeah, he did.
On the not rational, Alan, I'm going to defend the not rational or defend Tom. I sometimes have that same feeling where I think if I do this, if I write this, if I say this, I'm going to get in trouble. But I identify more with being a comic and being a writer. And it's like, that's the higher priority. So I get it. I'm not saying he made the best choice, but I've made the same mistake.
Well, I think you're right. I think that for Tom, it was like that. He was like, I will be faithful to my art.
Yeah.
This is what I have to do, regardless of the consequences. Yeah.
Well, family,
I should move on. Thank you
Well,
all
we can-
for doing this.
We can say
Um,
goodbye. Alan, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. So I guess we'll do it again next year, right? And we'll keep the
Hopefully.
websites up and
And Chris, nice to see
Thanks.
you. Tom,
Good to see you, Nick, Peter, everybody. Cindy,
sorry we couldn't
Alan,
do it here.
Christian.
well, I
I
did
didn't
record
mention your
this. I
name.
mean, not because I intended to. I had the
Dora.
settings on record, so I do have a recording of this, our discussion tonight. So I guess I'll email it to you guys if you want it. Okay.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Alan.
Okay.
Nice
And
seeing
Alan,
you all.
I want you to
Hey,
cut it like
bye.
Tom so that we can make several movies out of it. And
Yeah, right.
just-
We can make the beginning, the ending, and
yes.
things like that. Right.
Live long and prosper.
and
I shall do
prosper.
neither.
Love you, friends.
I have
Thank you,
killed my
everybody.
best
Thank you,
friend
guys. Thank you.
and my
All
first
right, take-
officer.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
See
God
you
bless.
soon.
See you.